Imagine standing on the shores of Japan, gazing at the endless horizon, thinking about the rich history that shaped this island nation. But what if the true story of Japan isn't just found in ancient temples, old scrolls, or battlefields? What if the real story is hidden deep within the people themselves, in their DNA, carrying secrets older than the oldest shrines, older than any written word? For centuries, historians have pieced together Japan's past through artifacts and legends. Yet, recent scientific discoveries have uncovered an entirely new chapter, one written not in ink, but in the genetic code of the Japanese people. Modern DNA research has revealed that the ancestry of the Japanese is far more complex and fascinating than we ever imagined. It's not just a tale of ancient emperors or samurai. It's a story written over tens of thousands of years, carried silently in the bloodlines of millions. Let's go back, way back, over 14,000 years ago, to the time of the Jōmon people, the first known inhabitants of the Japanese archipelago. These early hunter-gatherers lived in isolation for thousands of years, creating a culture rich in art, spirituality, and survival skills. But their most lasting legacy isn't just found in the pottery they left behind. It's hidden in their DNA. Studies have shown that the Jōmon lineage split from other East Asian populations between 25,000 and 38,000 years ago, making their genetic footprint incredibly unique. This divergence happened long before the ancestors of modern Chinese or Koreans even existed as separate groups. Their genetic markers can still be found today, especially in the people of Okinawa and Hokkaido, where the indigenous Ainu population carries strong Jōmon ancestry. These markers aren't just historical trivia. They've shaped physical traits, immune system responses, and even resistance to certain diseases. Imagine carrying within you the genetic story of people who hunted, gathered, and thrived in a world untouched by modern civilization. But the story doesn't end with the Jōmon. Around 800 BC, new people arrived on Japan's shores, the Yayoi, migrants from regions corresponding to modern-day China and Korea. They brought with them revolutionary changes, rice farming, metal tools, and new technologies that transformed Japanese society forever. Their arrival didn't wipe out the Jōmon. Instead, the two groups merged over generations. This blending of genes formed the early foundation of the modern Japanese population. For a long time, scientists believed that Japanese ancestry was a simple mix of Jōmon and Yayoi bloodlines. But recent genetic studies have shattered that belief. Researchers discovered evidence of a third major genetic influence from the Kofun period, a time when Japan was transitioning into a powerful, unified state around 300 to 700 AD. This group of migrants brought DNA closely related to modern Han Chinese, reshaping the genetic landscape of Japan once again. This was a game changer. It proved that Japan's genetic history isn't just a story of two ancestral groups, but a complex web of migrations and cultural exchanges. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. Modern Japanese DNA carries traces of ancient human species like Neanderthals and Denisovans. Yes, you heard that right. Just like many populations around the world, the ancestors of the Japanese people interbred with these ancient hominins tens of thousands of years ago. These archaic genes still influence traits today, from how the immune system fights off diseases to certain physical characteristics. It's mind-blowing to think that within the cells of every Japanese person lies a tiny fragment of humanity's distant, prehistoric relatives. So, when we look at Japan today, a country known for its technological advancements, rich traditions, and cultural heritage, we're not just seeing the result of modern history. We're witnessing the echoes of ancient migrations, the blending of diverse peoples, and the silent, enduring story written in their DNA. Japan's history isn't just in textbooks or temples. It's alive in the people, woven into every strand of their genetic code, connecting them to a past more ancient and extraordinary than we ever knew. Close your eyes for a moment and picture ancient Japan. Not the bustling cities, not the towering castles, but dense forests, rugged coastlines, and untouched islands. Long before samurais roamed and emperors ruled, there existed a people whose story has been hidden beneath layers of time. The Jōmon people, Japan's very first inhabitants. Their legacy isn't just buried in the soil. They live on in the DNA of millions of Japanese people today. The Jōmon civilization dates back to around 14,000 BC, making it one of the oldest continuous cultures in the world. But who were they? For a long time, historians could only guess, relying on pottery fragments, stone tools, and ancient burial sites. Now, thanks to groundbreaking genetic research, we've unlocked secrets that paint a far more vivid picture. Their DNA reveals a lineage that diverged from other East Asian populations between 25,000 to 38,000 years ago. This isn't just a small detail. It means the Jōmon were part of a migration wave that predates many of the ancient civilizations we read about in history books. What's fascinating is how their genetics show signs of extreme isolation. While neighboring regions experienced waves of migration, the Jōmon remained largely cut off, evolving in unique ways. Their distinct genetic markers are still present in modern Japanese people, particularly in populations from Okinawa and Hokkaido, where the indigenous Ainu people carry strong traces of Jōmon ancestry. These markers aren't just historical fingerprints, they influence real-world traits, from facial structure to immune system functions. Some even suggest that certain athletic abilities and health-related genes can be traced back to the Jōmon. But what was life like for these ancient people? The name Jōmon itself means cord-marked, referring to the distinctive patterns found on their pottery, some of the oldest in the world. They were skilled hunters, fishers, and gatherers, thriving off Japan's rich natural resources. Unlike many ancient societies that were constantly on the move, the Jōmon established semi-permanent settlements, complete with dwellings, ritual sites, and even graveyards. This stability allowed them to develop complex spiritual beliefs and social structures long before agriculture became widespread. Yet, despite their resilience, the Jōmon's world began to change around 800 BC with the arrival of the Yayoi people, migrants from mainland Asia who brought rice farming, metal tools, and new technologies. The Yayoi didn't just coexist with the Jōmon, they intermingled, leading to a blend of cultures and, more importantly, a fusion of genes. But even after thousands of years and countless generations, the Jōmon's genetic signature never disappeared. Modern genetic studies have uncovered something even more astonishing: traces of Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA within the Jōmon genome. This suggests that their ancestors, long before reaching Japan, had interactions with these ancient human relatives. Imagine that, hidden within the DNA of modern Japanese people are echoes of species that vanished tens of thousands of years ago. The story of the Jōmon isn't just an ancient tale. It's a living thread woven into the fabric of Japan's people. Their DNA carries the memory of an era untouched by modern civilization, a time when humanity was still finding its place in the world. It's a reminder that history isn't just in museums or textbooks. It's in us, in our genes, in every heartbeat, in every breath. Imagine a time when Japan was a land of dense forests, untouched rivers, and small Jōmon communities living off the land. But then, everything changed. Around 800 BC, new people arrived on Japan's shores. People who didn't just come to visit, they came to transform the very fabric of Japanese society. They were the Yayoi, and with them, they brought something more powerful than weapons or armies: agriculture. The Yayoi migration wasn't just a movement of people, it was a revolution. Originating from regions corresponding to modern-day China and Korea, these early farmers introduced rice cultivation, advanced metal tools, and new technologies that would redefine life in Japan forever. But how do we know this? It's not just from ancient artifacts or ruins. The real story is hidden in the DNA of modern Japanese people, revealing a dramatic tale of migration, integration, and transformation. Genetic studies have shown that the Yayoi were genetically distinct from the indigenous Jōmon people. Their DNA closely resembles that of ancient East Asian populations from the Yangtze River Basin, where rice farming first flourished. As they settled in Japan, the Yayoi didn't simply replace the Jōmon, they intermingled, leading to a profound genetic fusion. This blending of bloodlines laid the foundation for much of the modern Japanese population, especially in central and southern regions. But why was rice such a game-changer? Rice farming allowed for the development of permanent settlements, leading to population growth, social hierarchies, and the rise of organized communities. The Yayoi introduced bronze and iron tools, enhancing agriculture and warfare. They also brought new burial practices, pottery styles, and even linguistic influences that can still be traced in modern Japanese. Yet, the story isn't just about technological progress. The genetic legacy of the Yayoi reveals something deeper, a shift in Japan's ancestral identity. Where the Jōmon had lived in isolation for thousands of years, the Yayoi connected Japan to the broader currents of East Asian civilization. Their arrival marked the dawn of a new era, one where Japan began to evolve into the complex society we recognize today. What's even more fascinating is that modern Japanese people carry a unique blend of Jōmon and Yayoi DNA, with regional variations reflecting ancient migration patterns. In places like Kyushu, Yayoi ancestry is dominant, while in the north, the Jōmon's genetic influence remains stronger. This diversity is a living reminder of how Japan's history isn't just written in books. It's written in the genes of its people. The arrival of the Yayoi wasn't just the start of agriculture in Japan. It was the beginning of a new chapter in human history, where the past and future merged to create a legacy that still shapes Japan today. Picture ancient Japan around 300 AD, a land already shaped by the legacy of the Jōmon and Yayoi people. It seemed that the story of Japan's ancestry was complete, a simple blend of these two ancient groups. But what if that wasn't the full picture? What if there was a hidden chapter in Japan's genetic story, buried beneath centuries of history, waiting to be discovered? Recent genetic research has uncovered exactly that, a third ancestral group from the mysterious Kofun period that changed everything we thought we knew about Japan's origins. The Kofun period, named after the massive keyhole-shaped burial mounds built for powerful rulers, marked the rise of Japan's early imperial state. But beyond the grand tombs and emerging political structures, something else was happening. Waves of new people were arriving in Japan, leaving behind not just cultural footprints but also genetic markers that scientists only recently detected. For decades, historians believed in the dual structure model, which suggested that modern Japanese people descended solely from the Jōmon and Yayoi. However, advanced DNA sequencing has shattered this theory, revealing that there's more to the story. Genomic studies show that during the Kofun period, a new wave of migrants entered Japan, bringing genetic material closely related to modern Han Chinese populations. These migrants didn't just influence politics and culture. They blended with the existing Yayoi-Jōmon mix, reshaping the genetic landscape of the Japanese archipelago. This discovery was groundbreaking because it introduced a third major ancestral component that had been completely overlooked in historical models. But who were these people? The Kofun migrants were likely part of large-scale population movements from continental East Asia, driven by political shifts, technological advancements, and the expansion of powerful kingdoms like the Tang dynasty in China and ancient Korean states like Baekje and Goguryeo. Their arrival coincided with Japan's rapid transformation from small tribal communities to a more centralized society, with complex class systems, military elites, and organized governance. The genetic evidence is clear. Modern Japanese people carry significant ancestry from these Kofun migrants. In fact, in central Japan, particularly around the Kansai region, their genetic influence is stronger than that of the earlier Yayoi. This suggests that the Kofun migration wasn't just a minor event. It was a pivotal moment in Japanese history, one that reshaped both society and the biological makeup of the population. What makes this discovery even more fascinating is how it challenges the idea of a simple, linear history. Japan's past isn't a straightforward story of one group replacing another. It's a complex tapestry, woven from multiple waves of migration, cultural exchanges, and genetic blending over thousands of years. So, the next time you see Japan's ancient temples or read about its early emperors, remember that the real story isn't just in the history books. It's written in the DNA of the Japanese people, a living record of journeys, connections, and hidden ancestors whose stories are only now coming to light. Imagine discovering that hidden deep within your DNA are traces of ancient humans who vanished tens of thousands of years ago. Not distant ancestors like great-grandparents or forgotten historical figures, but entirely different human species. This isn't science fiction. It's the reality of modern genetics. And for the people of Japan, this revelation is even more extraordinary. Recent research has uncovered that Japanese DNA carries the archaic echoes of both Neanderthals and Denisovans, revealing a story that stretches back to the dawn of humanity itself. Long before the Jōmon people settled in Japan, before the Yayoi brought agriculture, and even before the great migrations across Asia, ancient humans roamed the earth. Species like the Neanderthals, who thrived across Europe and parts of Asia, and the mysterious Denisovans, whose existence was only confirmed through genetic evidence in the past 2 decades. These weren't just distant cousins of modern humans. They were entirely separate species with unique traits, behaviors, and ways of life. And yet, despite their differences, they left a permanent mark on us, not through monuments or artifacts, but through our very DNA. Genetic studies have revealed that modern Japanese people, like many other populations in Asia, carry small but significant amounts of Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA. How did this happen? As early Homo sapiens migrated out of Africa around 60,000 years ago, they didn't journey alone. Along the way, they encountered and interbred with Neanderthals in regions like the Middle East and Central Asia. Later, as humans moved further east, they met and mixed with Denisovans, whose range likely extended across parts of Siberia, Southeast Asia, and beyond. The result of these ancient encounters is written in the genes of modern people. In Japan, scientists have identified specific genetic markers that can be traced directly back to these archaic humans. These aren't just random fragments of DNA. They've influenced real, observable traits. For example, some genes inherited from Neanderthals are linked to the immune system, enhancing the body's ability to fight off certain diseases. Other Neanderthal-derived genes have been associated with skin characteristics, hair texture, and even how the body processes fat. Denisovan DNA, while less prevalent, also plays a role. Some of these genes are connected to adaptations for living at high altitudes, which is more commonly seen in populations like the Tibetans but still leaves subtle traces in East Asian groups, including the Japanese. It's fascinating to think that a genetic gift from a species that disappeared over 40,000 years ago can still affect how people's bodies respond to their environment today. But the significance of this discovery goes beyond biology. It reshapes our understanding of what it means to be human. For years, we thought of Neanderthals and Denisovans as primitive or separate from us. But the truth is far more complex. They are part of our story, woven into our genetic fabric. The Japanese genome, with its unique blend of Jōmon, Yayoi, Kofun, and archaic human ancestry, is a living testament to the interconnectedness of all humans throughout history. So, when we look in the mirror, we're not just seeing ourselves. We're seeing the echoes of ancient beings who lived, thrived, and vanished long before recorded history, yet still, somehow, live on within us. When you think of Japan, you might picture ancient temples, cherry blossoms, or the bustling streets of Tokyo. But hidden beneath all of that, within every Japanese person, lies something even more extraordinary. A genetic story written over tens of thousands of years. The DNA of modern Japanese people isn't just a simple thread connecting the past to the present. It's a complex mosaic, woven from ancient migrations, isolated cultures, and even echoes of long-extinct human species. For years, scientists believed that Japanese ancestry was shaped mainly by two groups, the Jōmon, Japan's original hunter-gatherers, and the Yayoi, rice farmers who migrated from mainland Asia around 800 BC. But recent genetic research has revealed a much more intricate picture. It turns out that Japan's genetic history isn't just about two ancestral threads. It's a tapestry woven from multiple waves of migration, intermixing, and adaptation, creating a rich and diverse genetic landscape. At the core of this story are the Jōmon people, whose genetic lineage diverged from other East Asians around 25,000 to 38,000 years ago. Their DNA is unique, marked by characteristics that evolved during thousands of years of isolation on the Japanese archipelago. Even today, you can find traces of their genes, particularly among the Ainu people in Hokkaido and communities in Okinawa. This Jōmon legacy influences not just physical traits but also aspects of immunity and metabolism, remnants of an ancient world still alive in modern bodies. But the Jōmon weren't the only ones to leave their mark. The arrival of the Yayoi brought dramatic changes. They introduced rice farming, advanced tools, and new societal structures, but they also brought new genetic material from China and the Korean peninsula. As the Yayoi intermingled with the Jōmon, their genes merged, creating the foundation of the modern Japanese genome. This wasn't just a simple replacement. It was a complex process of blending cultures and bloodlines, shaping everything from language to daily life. And then came a surprising discovery. For decades, scientists thought the story ended there. But recent genomic studies uncovered a third major ancestral group, migrants from the Kofun period, around 300 to 700 AD. Their DNA shows strong connections to Han Chinese populations, suggesting that Japan experienced yet another wave of migration, one that significantly influenced its genetic makeup. This revelation challenged the long-held dual-structure model and proved that Japan's history is far more dynamic than we ever imagined. But the complexity doesn't stop with these three groups. Modern Japanese DNA also contains traces of Neanderthal and Denisovan ancestry, ancient human species that vanished tens of thousands of years ago. These archaic genes affect everything from the immune system to physical traits, adding yet another layer to Japan's genetic story. It's astonishing to think that hidden within every cell are echoes of ancient humans who lived in caves and hunted with stone tools. What's even more fascinating is how this genetic diversity varies across Japan. In the north, particularly in Hokkaido, people tend to have stronger Jōmon ancestry. In Kyushu, Yayoi and Kofun influences are more dominant. Even within Tokyo's bustling metropolis, the genetic makeup of its residents reflects this deep, complex history. So, what does this all mean? It means that Japan's story isn't just about emperors, samurai, or cultural traditions. It's about people, real people whose ancestors traveled, settled, and adapted over thousands of years. Their DNA holds the memories of ancient migrations, long-forgotten civilizations, and even species that no longer exist. Japan's history isn't just written in books or carved into monuments. It's alive, encoded in the very fabric of its people, carrying whispers of a past that shaped not just a nation, but humanity itself. When we explore Japan's ancient past through its DNA, we're not just uncovering the story of one nation, we're unlocking a chapter in the story of all humanity. The complex genetic makeup of the Japanese people is like a living time capsule, holding clues about where we came from, how we migrated across the globe, and how interconnected we all truly are. It's not just Japan's story, it's ours. For decades, scientists believed that human history could be neatly traced through archaeological sites and historical texts. But DNA has shown us something even more profound. The genetic journey of the Japanese people reveals that no human population is isolated. Every culture, every nation, is part of an ancient web woven over tens of thousands of years. The strands of this web stretch across continents, linking us all through shared ancestors, ancient migrations, and even prehistoric species that no longer exist. Take the Jōmon people, for example. Their ancestors diverged from other East Asian populations between 25,000 to 38,000 years ago, representing one of the earliest migrations into the Japanese archipelago. But their story didn't start there. Their lineage traces back to the Great Migrations out of Africa, where all modern humans originated around 60,000 years ago. The Jōmon are part of that epic journey, a wave of explorers who ventured east, settling in new lands and adapting to new environments. Then came the Yayoi migration, around 800 BC, bringing people from China and Korea. Their movement wasn't just a Japanese phenomenon. It was part of a larger wave of agricultural expansion that spread rice farming, metalworking, and new technologies across Asia. This mirrors what happened in Europe with the spread of agriculture from the Middle East. These parallel migrations on opposite sides of the world show that human history is shaped by the same forces, the search for food, resources, and new opportunities. And it doesn't stop there. The discovery of a third ancestral group from the Kofun period, 300 to 700 AD, adds another layer to the story. These migrants, with genetic ties to Han Chinese populations, are evidence of the constant movement and mixing of people throughout history. Borders, languages, and cultures may change, but human migration is a constant, a force that has shaped every civilization on Earth. But perhaps the most mind-blowing part of Japan's genetic story is the discovery of Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA. These ancient human species, who disappeared tens of thousands of years ago, still live on in all of us. Their genes influence everything from our immune systems to our physical traits. This isn't just a Japanese story. Everyone alive today carries traces of these ancient humans, connecting us to a time long before written history. So, what does Japan's DNA teach us? It teaches us that we are all connected. The Japanese genome is a mosaic of ancient hunter-gatherers, early farmers, imperial migrants, and even prehistoric humans. But the same is true for every population on Earth. Whether you're from Asia, Africa, Europe, or the Americas, your DNA carries the echoes of migrations, encounters, and adaptations that stretch back to the dawn of humanity. In the end, Japan's genetic story isn't just about islands in the Pacific. It's a mirror reflecting the larger human journey. It reminds us that history isn't just about nations or empires. It's about people. People who moved, mixed, adapted, and survived, leaving behind the greatest record of all, the story written in our DNA. When we think about history, we often picture ancient scrolls, towering monuments, or dusty artifacts locked away in museums. But the most profound history isn't written on stone walls or preserved in relics. It's written within us, in the very code of our DNA. The story of Japan's people isn't just a tale of emperors, samurais, or shifting dynasties. It's the story of ancient migrations, of forgotten ancestors, and of silent whispers carried through generations, all woven into the fabric of their genes. From the isolated hunter-gatherers of the Jōmon era, whose lineage stretches back tens of thousands of years, to the Yayoi farmers who brought with them the seeds of agriculture and change, every strand of Japanese DNA tells a story. The arrival of the Kofun migrants added another layer, reshaping not just the cultural landscape but the very blueprint of the people themselves. And even beyond these known ancestors, fragments of Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA live on, connecting modern Japanese people to ancient humans who disappeared long before the first civilizations rose. But this isn't just Japan's story. It's a reflection of all of us. The human genome is a living record, holding the echoes of our shared past, of journeys made across continents, of survival through unimaginable challenges, and of connections formed long before borders or nations existed. So, the next time you look in the mirror, remember, you're not just seeing yourself. You're seeing the culmination of thousands of years of history, survival, and evolution. Your DNA carries the legacy of people you've never met, whose names you'll never know, but who live on in every heartbeat, every breath, and every strand of who you are. Japan's history isn't just carved in temples or written in books. It's alive, encoded in its people, a story that continues to evolve with every generation. We've just uncovered a story hidden deep within the DNA of the Japanese people, a story older than empires, older than history itself. From the ancient Jōmon hunters to the Yayoi farmers, from the powerful Kofun migrants to the echoes of Neanderthals and Denisovans, every chapter has revealed how connected we all are to the past. But this journey doesn't end here. What surprised you the most about Japan's genetic story? Did you expect to find traces of ancient human species still alive in modern DNA? Or were you fascinated by how migrations from thousands of years ago continue to shape who we are today? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your ideas and questions in the comments below. Your insights could spark the next great conversation about our shared human history. And if you're as fascinated by these hidden stories as we are, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us on the next discovery. Because the past isn't just behind us, it's within us, waiting to be explored. Across this incredible journey, we've uncovered the layers of Japan's history, not through ancient texts or artifacts, but through something even more profound, DNA. We traced the footsteps of the Jōmon people, isolated for thousands of years, whose genes still echo in the people of Okinawa and Hokkaido. We witnessed the transformative arrival of the Yayoi farmers, who reshaped not only the land with rice cultivation but also the genetic landscape of Japan itself. Then, we uncovered the hidden influence of the Kofun migrants, whose arrival rewrote the story we thought we knew, revealing that Japan's ancestry wasn't just a simple blend of two cultures but a rich, layered tapestry. Beyond that, we delved into the ancient past, finding traces of Neanderthals and Denisovans, prehistoric humans whose legacy still shapes us in ways we're only beginning to understand. But this story isn't just about Japan. It's about all of us. It's a reminder that beneath the surface of every culture, every nation, lies a shared human journey of migration, adaptation, and survival. Our DNA connects us to people and places we've never seen, to ancestors whose names are lost to time, yet whose legacy lives on in every one of us. Japan's history isn't just written in books or carved into monuments. It's alive, in the hearts, minds, and genes of its people. And the same is true for you. Your story is older than you think.